should be live here in just 1 second, so just bear with me, please, just to make sure that everything's working like it should be. And it looks like it's live on YouTube as well, or it should be at least. So we'll see. The YouTube live thing has really been, there we are. Yeah, we're live. So YouTube live has been giving me a bit of a headache lately, so sorry about that, guys. But I know that you guys are on Instagram live and you guys are watching what's going on now. If you saw the introduction to my or the post about my live, you'll see that it talks about a couple of questions, or a few questions I got asked this week, and it also talks about, so I gotta adjust the light a little bit here. It also talks about a trimming question, or some concepts for trimming, which actually was one of the questions for this week, and that's why we're gonna go over it. So first off, got to give a huge shout out to all my sponsors. Gap Arborist Supply, of course, is one of my sponsors. If you're not checking them out, or if you haven't yet, definitely go check them out. Totally worth the effort to buy from them. Not that it's much effort at all, but just takes a change of thought to go check them out. Great guys, have great products, and they really care about their customers. So keep that in mind. Also, Weaver Arborist, of course, is one of my sponsors. You'll see me, I use, like, out of everything that I have of Weaver, and I have a bit, the rope bags are just dead on. They're so classy looking. I've actually had a couple of clients talk to me about the rope bags and how much they like them. And I've been using the same rope bags for a number of months now, and they're still very structurally sound on the sides. They don't collapse, and rope doesn't get all caught up on them. So definitely worth that. Justin at Saws, he just sent me a whole bunch of filters and stuff for my saws, which I've got to get on, and things. This week's been absolutely crazy. Somebody actually asked me a question that will pertain to Justin at Saws this week, or actually two, and so we'll go over that. And then last but definitely not least, my affiliate association with ARB Shirts. If you have not yet, please go by arbshirts.com and check out all of their products. But if you want to buy anything under the Elevated Office topic, that will support me with a very small amount of shared commission that I get off of the sales of everything Elevated Office podcast. So Travis Bowman has gotten his package for the stickers that I sent out. More people should be getting there soon. I did send some to England, so keep an eye out for that, you guys. And I'm not telling you who got what, but you guys should be getting something here, I guess in the next month or so. And I've got more coming out as well. So also need to give a huge shout out to my Patreon members. The Patreon members are really helping keep all this going as well. So we've got Mars Gia, we've got Ruben Craighead, we've got Sean Thompson with a Tattooed Arborist, and now we also have, why did I just forget your name? Brian, I want to say it is, with BZ Tree Care, if I remember correctly. It's his new one. He used to be, I forgot the name of his other handle, but he changed it recently. So that's what we've got going on with all of that stuff. Yeah, no problem, Travis. Travis says thank you for the stickers. No problem, man. It was my pleasure. I really like being able to give out to people the stickers and products and stuff. Okay, so we've got all of that going on, and there's a potential. I was actually talking there. Speak of one of my Patreon members, there's Mars Gia. He just showed up. Thanks, Mars. Also, I was talking to Ben at Parkway Trees earlier today, and on Instagram Messenger, and I was asking about if I got together, I don't know, once a month or once every other month, a round table of arborists and tree climbers. I'm thinking maybe including myself, 4 or 5 people max, just so it's manageable, and did a recorded Zoom conference with 4 or 5 other climbers and arborists other than myself, and we talked about a topic or various topics and put it out for you guys to watch on YouTube and stuff. Would you guys like that? Is that something you're interested in? Because I don't mind sharing my experience. but I definitely don't think I'm the only guy to comment and talk about product and techniques. So I think that it would be really good if I could share some other point of views from other professionals um, about the same topics, and we can kind of feed off each other. So that's what. Hey, Mark, what's going on? All right, Mars says yes. Sergato says yes, but not on Zoom. No, it'll have to be on Zoom. It's just how it is. It'll have to be a. I can't. I couldn't manage 4 or 5 guys talking and you guys commenting at the same time. I just couldn't do it. So what will probably have to happen is we will put out the topic and you guys can watch it. And if you have questions, you could write them in, and then I'll talk about them on a live after that, something like that. I don't want to. I don't want to do a direct live with 5 guys because you often get off on really weird tangents and it becomes really long. I'll have to do some editing. That's why I'm thinking maybe once every 1 or 2 months. I couldn't handle more than that, to be honest. And it's not that I don't like talking to the other guys. I do. It's just the practicality of getting everything organized with their schedule and my schedule, and then it's yeah, I won't do a live. I will record it, Mars. Yeah, for sure. So that way we can edit out things, and every once in a while, especially when you get multiple people talking and you're trying to add in something before the topic changes, you say something you know the right thing, but you accidentally say the wrong thing. And when I go and do editing, if somebody says, "Oh no, I didn't mean to say that," I cut out their mistake because I'm not trying to make anybody look bad. I'm not hiding any truth from you guys. I'm just trying to keep it fluid, and I don't want anybody to look bad. There's no need for it. So yes, Mars, on YouTube. It'll be up on YouTube. So, okay, that's that out of the way. So let's talk about a few questions I got this week. I get questions quite a bit, and I figured I'm getting enough of them now. Maybe I should start sharing them with you. So that being the case, let me pull up my other screen here on my computer. I've got my computer in front of me, so please bear with me. I'm not ignoring you guys. Oh, I gotta mute this thing so you guys don't hear that. And where is my description of this? I don't see my description, so let me try this. Okay, so the first topic I had this week, or first question I had that I'll go over is oh, sorry. What's up, Conquistador? What do I think, or how do I like the RopeRunner Pro on Blue Moon? I've actually got this. I've received this question a number of times, and to be quite frank with you, I love it. I really enjoy climbing on Blue Moon. It's one of my favorite ropes. All that whole family. I used to climb on Poison Ivy. Now that's no longer. I've tried Calamine a little bit. I really like that. I like the whole Yale family to a large degree. The only one I'm not super fond of is Scandieri. I'm not a huge fan of Scandieri. I don't know what it's called. Traver and Trees, what's going on? Nice to have you back. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of Scandieri or whatever. Thanks, Traver. He says, nice hat, man. Yeah, it's from Weaver. I love it. It's really, really classy. They did a good job with it. So I do find, just so you guys know, and I don't mean to go down a rabbit hole here, but the Kernmaster rope is more stretchy than, of course, and more bouncy than like the Blue Moon and all that is. But it's not quite as static, or it's technically a static rope. It's not quite as stiff in climbing or stable in climbing as like the Blue Moon is. Blue Moon doesn't bounce on me hardly at all. Kernmaster does. It bounces a little bit, but Scandier is like really bad. I just don't feel, I don't know, it's not, I feel it's safe enough. There's nothing wrong with the rope. It's just not my preference, okay? That all being said, my RopeRunner Pro runs equally well on all of them. Okay, so Brian is with BZ Arbor Care. He's my other Patreon member. That's who I meant to mention earlier. Thanks. So I like it. Now, there is a couple of things that I think you should know about me climbing on the RopeRunner Pro. One is that with all my gear and everything, I'm about 235 pounds and I'm 6'2", I think. 6'1", 6'2", something like that. So I'm not a light guy. I'm not a small guy. My current coat size is a 44 or 46 chest. So I've got a fairly large, diameter chest. So all of that does affect how things react with you. So when I say a rope is kind of stretchy and bouncy, it's because some of it's just my mass, like how much, and some of it would depend on how fluid you are climbing. Okay. I do find that Kernmaster has a better hand to it and knots better and things like that. And it climbs a little bit more like Scandier, but not quite that bad as far as the jarring goes. But it's not quite as good in my opinion as like the whole Blue Moon, Gap Vantage, Calamine. Blaze isn't that family, but that whole family. Ben, what strand rope is the Blue Moon? Do you know? I can't remember. I should know that. It's not? I don't remember. I'm not even going to try to make up something for you guys because I really don't know. That's one thing I'm trying to learn better is what count strands the ropes are. I've never really paid attention to it really that much. It never made much difference to me. If it was durable and it didn't, it's 24. Okay, perfect. Thanks. So I like it. As far as I know, Sean, a tattooed arborist, also says that it's really easy to splice. Blue Moon is, that whole family. Do know though that the dyes in the fabric, the dyes on the fabric will in fact change the way a rope handles. Okay. It sounds crazy. It's like it's the same 24 strand. Kolaric says try Samson Hyperclimb. Okay, maybe I'll give that a go one day. And so if you're looking at splicing and stuff, he definitely told me that like Blue Moon is one of his favorite. So maybe the Blue Moon Calamine might be something you want to get to practice splicing on. I don't know. I haven't gotten into splicing yet. Ben tells me with Parkway trees that if you just watch some of the videos and practice, you can get it. So I'm going to give it a go. I'm not buying a whole lot of that kind of stuff right now. It's not super expensive. The Blue Moon splicing, the Yale splicing kit is around $200-ish. Nobody's got them in stock right now that I know of other than Yale. So keep that in mind. But we're trying to buy a house, so I've got to kind of save up some money and not spend stuff, because not so much the money that we need to buy it as much as how it looks for the financing company, because it's all a mess. It's just frustrating. Owning your own business and buying a house can be a challenge at times, so just know that as well. Anyway, so that's my viewpoint on climbing the RopeRunner Pro on Blue Moon. Oh, the other thing is, I don't like a very static device that like stops instantly. I almost always have my devices set to where they, I've heard people call it various things. I call it fading, where like you're running down the line, you let off and it kind of just slowly comes to a stop instead of, or if I'm coming down really hard and I want it to stop, I just push up with my thumbs and stop it faster. I like it that way. It's just on the verge of creeping when you're sitting still. Well, I don't have setback. I'm not getting setback in the device when I go up. I go up and it locks instantly. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't creep while I'm sitting there. It just doesn't when you let off it, like a sudden stop on the rope. I just don't like that sudden stop on the rope. It's a personal thing. But yeah, it's not setback, Brian, that you like. Setback to me is like the Unisender or a Prusik, where you go up and when you set back, it's like a ton of setback. You actually drop an inch or two more. And that's not how the RopeRunner is for me. Maybe a little bit. I think most devices have that, maybe other than the Zigzag. Does the zigzag have setback? I don't know, but I don't notice it much in the RopeRunner Pro. I just like it to fade on the way down. I don't like it to grab the rope hard when I'm stopping. So for all of those setups, I really like it. That's all I can say in that. What else have we got going on here? Oh, I closed my window. Let me see here. So my other question, what are my thoughts on the Husqvarna Battery top handle saws? Okay, so Husky top handle saws. I really like them. I think they're great saws. I have the 536 that somebody's been wanting to buy for me for months, and I just haven't gotten by UPS to see how much it's going to cost for shipping with 2 batteries, because the lithium battery and shipping thing is just a nightmare anyway. But I really like this saw. The Makita X0, what is that thing? XC09, that's what it is. So that's the 36 volt. It runs the 2 18-volt batteries. I think cuts a little bit faster when you put a brand new chain on both of them. I think the Makita cuts just a little bit faster, has a little bit stronger low end torque. But the what's it called? The Husky is great. Now I haven't tried the 540 yet. What I do know about the Huskies are 2 things. One, before the 540 came out, they were evidently getting rid of some of their inventory on the 536 LIXP. So it was hard to get batteries for the 536 LIXP. Another thing is that as far as I've seen, I can't find replacement batteries for the 536. They only sell batteries for the 540. Maybe the 540 fits the 536, and the places I've been looking haven't explained that clearly. If you guys know, that would be awesome. I would like to know that. But that has been a challenge. I do know that nobody in my local town that sells Husky or services Husky, and there's only like one guy in town because I'm in a small western town of Colorado. They don't even have anything electric in the house. They what's it called? They have to order everything in, so it's not easy to get stuff as soon as you need it. Trying to watch UFC and the live feed. Yeah, I don't know how much you're gonna get out of live feed, so but yeah, so keep that in mind. It might be a little hard to get parts depending on what sources you have around you. Okay, that's the only thing. The dealers for Steel seem to support their battery powered tools better than the dealers for Husky, and it doesn't seem as there's as many Husky dealers as there are Steel dealers. Maybe that's just my perception, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's how it seems to me. The other thing is that if you have to have maintenance done on the battery powered saws, most people have told me they've had to have them sent off. Not much maintenance can be done on the battery powered saws in the service shops. So I don't know if that's changing now with the 2nd gen of the 540s being out in that whole line. I don't know, but I know that was the case for me. Last thing about them is, and I don't know how this compares to the Steel, and I don't know how this compares to the Makita yet because I haven't run it in rain. But like if you get a little drizzle of rain or whatever and you hold the saw just right, the Husky, it can get water run in between the battery and the saw casing, and it can mess up the contact points. And then it not mess them up like you can't use it anymore. It just doesn't run when it's wet. You have to dry them out. And I had that happen when it was raining on me. It was like a light mist, enough to get you wet and have water running off of you. But it was a constant light mist, and it did that. And then one other time was it got set in snow, and then snow melted, and it wouldn't run on me. I had to go back to a gas-powered saw. So I think they're great tools. I don't think they're perfect for everything. Just FYI. BZ Arbor Care. I'm a Husky guy for life, but I gotta admit, Husqvarna servicing in US is not great. Yeah, I'm not a fanboy of any saw company, to be honest. I have a lot of Steels, and I had everything Steel for a while, just because they are the most heavily supported where I live, and it was just practicality for my business. It just made sense. But now I've got echoes, and I'm learning how to work on saws myself a little bit more, and so it doesn't really matter to me as much if I have I have stills that I love and want to keep, and then I have echoes that I think are better than the stills in certain ways. So that's just how it is for me. All right, so I think that's all of those questions. Now, the last question that I want to bring up was a question asked to me yesterday, and it was specifically the main topic of what we're going to go over today. And that topic was, I want to read this exactly right. So I'm going to my Instagram page. I'm going to look at my comments real quick. Let me see what was said. He didn't mean any offense by it, which is why I responded. He was just genuinely curious and a bit doubtful. So I put up recently the photos yesterday of the before and after of that maple prune that I did. Okay, and if you notice, the prune the tree was a little thin on its own. So Seth McPherson 85 on Instagram asked, oh, that's his response, not his question. Where's his question? It's not gonna. Let me go. I got to go to that post now. It's too far down the list. So he asked, why thin out a tree that is already struggling? And to be honest with you, that's a really good question. Why should you thin out a tree that's already struggling? Well, from one perspective at least, it seems like that would be a very bad thing. And to be quite frank with you, there are some trees that are struggling that I simply would not thin out, okay? Or prune or whatever. Deadwooding, yes. All the other stuff, no. And yes, so there's the whole debate about normal collaring and shedding of deadwood versus the cutting it off and which is better and whatnot. And that to me really comes down to a aspect of what is more likely to occur to the tree. So let's say you have a tree that's struggling. It's not in real great shape. Maybe it's about half dead. Maybe, something around that. And the client says, I really don't want to cut down this tree yet. It adds some kind of aesthetic and it adds some kind of shade. I want to keep it as long as I can. What can I do? Well, for a safety practicality, and maybe not even safety to just the family, but also like if there's, a portion of the house or vehicles or whatever under the tree, deadwooding, it's a good option because, well, it's probably got some deadwood at that time period, right? And in that case, big stuff or bigger stuff that might easily break off in the wind, I would go and make sure all that's out of there, simply because I personally believe, thanks Alt Axis, take care, man. I personally believe that if a piece of dead breaks and it's got a lot of fracture in it, like a tear because it breaks, that's more area for bacteria and stuff to sit in and decay to start in easier than a smooth cut. It seems that when I look at trees that have fractures on them and things that aren't really that sound and can't really compartmentalize that dead that's occurring, when I look at a natural break out of wind versus a pruned cut in the past, the pruned cuts seem to be doing better. Now, I haven't read a study on this. I don't know if that's true. It's just what I perceive, and so that's what I do. One of you guys that's more educated could probably tell me if I'm completely off basis on that. I don't know. What I do know, though, and what I have seen over the years doing pruning on trees that are kind of slightly struggling, is that a selective pruning can actually help that tree. In what way? Well, one of the ways that it can help that tree is if you balance out the pruning to thin certain tip weights and wind friction areas for the more brittle branches, especially like for us, the maples they're already really brittle. We get some really high winds during the summer and spring, I mean, really high winds. And therefore, at times, um, if it's already kind of fatigued and it has that wind resistance on it, it'll just break off whole pieces and shear and strip down the tree, which is not real good. I found that if I lightly and selectively thin those potential break branches while it's in a little bit of decline, it keeps those branches a little bit longer. But you don't want to over thin them because it needs all the nutrients and stuff it can get, making that that transportation between the root system all the way up to the leaf ends and photosynthesis, and keeping that all alive through the cambium layers. So yeah, I do think that sometimes a light thinning can help, but don't overdo it. And then of course end weight reductions or extremely weak areas can be pruned off at times to make it just more stable. Now, it's always a catch-22 because depending on the tree, depending on the situation, will the tree just keep in decline, or will it recover a little bit of those wound cuts you make, or will those wound cuts become more areas for decay? Who really knows? You can make good judgment sometimes looking at the tree and the history of the tree if you have some reference to it. But if you don't, it's kind of like, what's the more probable of the two? What's going to kill it faster? Will that extra weight on that branch with a 90 or 60 mile an hour wind break that branch off and it lose it anyway? Now you have a tear and potentially a worse situation for the tree to deal with. Or will making a couple of small pruning cuts on that branch provide an area where potential decay will set in, but that decay will maybe even cause the failure of that branch, but much longer down the road. There's always these kinds of factors that I have to factor in. Another thing, especially with like the maples, now here at least, one of the big things they suffer from is crossing branches. If you have like a maple tree, it's going to be this gnarly, wild thing of branches, and they're crossing and they're whatever, and a lot of times that's going to mean that they're opening wounds potentially, and when they do that, then if it's already in decline, there's a good chance that those exposed wounds where it's rubbed through bark and cambium is going to just allow other infections in, because if the tree's barely staying alive as it can, there's a good chance it's not going to be able to fight off those extra things, right? So I do prune trees that are struggling, but it's very specific purpose. It's following the general guidelines of pruning any tree, really, in my opinion, but it's really more precisely thought out even, because I'm going to do less of a pruning. I'm going to, hinder and harm that tree the least amount possible. Now, I'm trying to get a little bit more research done out here on the maples that we have in our area. I've read a bunch about maples and general things. We do have a big problem with iron chlorosis with trees out here because the soil where we live is like this sandy clay. It's high desert. It has no nutrients really in it. It's awful, awful, awful for everything. They farm it, but they have to like really fertilize, and they have to put a whole bunch of supplements into the ground just to get some kind of, food out of it. And maples here are not native. They were all brought in. So we have a few that can survive, but they often struggle really bad. And one of the things is, if you've ever seen maples, you know that they tend to get really bad girdling roots around them. It's just kind of how it is. With the clay that we have here, it's almost a little worse than I've seen in other places. Like the maples in Georgia didn't seem to have that same problem. So what we get going on here is that half the bark, half the trunk almost dies on every maple, and then the other half will stay alive for a long period of time. And I don't know, a lot of these trees I don't get called in on until the very end of their life cycle, because I'm removing them or doing heavy deadwooding prunes on them to try to, keep it from breaking a house or whatever. And I'm trying to get more specimens to look at to find out. If you guys have an idea where I should look, please let me know if you have any references. I would love to read more on this and figure out what exactly is going on. I mean, girdling root, So Brian with BZ Arbor Care. No, I don't do injections yet. Nobody's willing to pay for them out here. So I haven't bought the equipment yet. And if I remember correctly, what I'm not sure about is if that puts me into the pest control side with a license or not. I have to look at that. I know that ground fertilizing does not put me into a pest control area, so I don't have to have a license or insurance for that. I can do like broadcast fertilizing and all that stuff and deep root fertilizing with no problem out here. But I do, okay, BZ Arbor Care says it does put me into that. Yeah, nobody's really that interested. I've done some research and talked to a bunch of people, even my higher end clients, and they're like, if I have to do it and it's going to be every year and I have to pay this much, then it's not worth it. They'll pay for somebody to come out and throw some fertilizer on the ground, but they don't want injection systems and all that. I would really like to have an experimental maple that I could like clear the root system away and then do some pruning on the roots and see if that helps it out, because they do girdle real bad, and it almost looks to me an untrained, I mean, well, I'm not untrained, but you know what I mean, like not having the specific training on that maple in that scenario, it seems almost to me like they're girdling and half the tree is dying because of girdled root issues. But I don't know. I mean, but it's like literally half the tree will die and all the bark just shells and falls off and it's just dry wood on half of it. And then the other half is completely alive. And they'll stay like that for years. So, if any of you guys have any information on that, I'd like to know about it. Okay? I would like to know. So BZ Arbor Care says, guy I've consulted with here has the license, and he also said it's not really fruitful, kind of a last ditch effort. Okay. The Tree Bee says, I have 2 in my front yard. Come on out. Cornpo 6677 says, air spades work really nice. Well for that, especially on your younger trees with girdling roots. Yeah, I am looking at potentially getting the arbors, I mean the air spade setup. I would like that. I think it'd do really good because what we get around here, hold on one second guys. Tree Bee says, I experiment on them, remove some girdled roots on one last year. Take some photos for me, Tree Bee. If you have photos before and how they're responding now, I would really be interested to see. I'm always interested in that kind of stuff. So I do think that air spading would be great out here for a number of reasons. One of the biggest reasons out here is that there are a lot of heritage cottonwoods and elm trees out here, and then they build near them. And the problem we have with that is that because this is that sandy clay-based soil, if it gets moist at all while they're doing construction work or whatnot, it packs that dirt like cement around the root system, because you know how construction guys are. They don't care if they're driving over major root systems or anything like that. They're just getting the job done as fast as they can. Thanks, Tree Bee. And so yeah, it's a up in the air kind of thing. It's just a big investment because I have to have the air spade, which is I want to say like $1,200, and then I have to rent a compressor or buy one, and those compressors ain't cheap. So I'm trying to work up to that a little bit. But because of that root system, and so if you have a tree that's been in a yard for a long time, a lot of yards out here are xeriscape. They don't have any grass. They are 100% gravel, which is awful for tree roots because it just conducts a ton of heat and puts it into the ground. Or they just have dirt. A lot of people just have dirt. They don't even have grass. When it rains and when the snow comes and melts, it actually, the weight packs down that ground, and after years and years, especially around the drip line, that dirt becomes like as compact and hard as cement. So I think a lot of these trees would do good with like aerial fertilization and aerial, what is that called? Aerating. that kind of stuff. I've heard some mixed, you know, when you read enough articles by arborists and PhDs and arboriculture and you know, just plant health, you get contradicting information, and it becomes a does it work in my area, does it work at all kind of discussion. I've heard that some people say that air spades are awful because they tear up the roots anyway, which I've seen air spades run. I think that it's a lot of how you use it, to be honest. I think a lot of it has to do with what kind of soil you're working in and what the tree might need. And I think a lot of it, like anything, is just do the pros for your specific situation and that specific tree outweigh the cons. Um, you know, it's like making a decision on taking off a huge lead off of a tree. Let's say you have a huge oak tree. We don't have any oaks out here, but I come from Georgia, so I know what oaks are very well. You have a huge lead on an oak tree, and it's split, and it's dying, and it's over a house. Is it ideal that you cut that big lead off and leave an exposed wound that's, you know, 20 or something inches in diameter? No, it's not ideal by any means. It's not. But is it better than leaving the branch and trying to cable it all up and hoping that by some miracle it heals over and it continues to grow with no problems? Well, in most cases, yes, it would be better to simply remove it. And that's what we get paid for, these judgments. So I'm always looking at what's going on and what might potentially be effective. So the short answer, I guess, of why did I prune a declining tree and why would I prune a declining tree would be that a tree needs to be balanced for the environment that it will face compared with the relative health that it has to make it the most sustainable possible for a certain period of time, if you know it's declining for the next 5 years, or to hopefully make it a long-lived tree if you can get the other situations under control. And like for this maple that I have on Instagram that's initiated this question, I did recommend some fertilization and things, see if it'll get better, because it does have really good wound wood edges, you know, where it's trying to compartmentalize. The problem is it's just such a large area that it'll never cover it all again. I really don't think it will. And because that lead on that side that I cabled was already dried and rotten at the bottom with just a strip of cambium layer up top, that was only about that wide, to be honest. Somehow the whole lead is leafed out and everything, but I did want to reduce weight on the end so that those cables and the wind wouldn't fight that lead as much, and the cables could do their job better, and hopefully that branch could hang on a while longer. So that's why I did it. Some trees I just won't prune. It's too dead. I just, you know, as a general rule, and this is, once again, each tree is different, but as a general rule, if it's 2/3 dead, I'm going to tell the client, you know, don't waste your money trying to get this back. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. Maybe you guys have experienced this. Tell me if you have. Do you guys get a lot of calls from clients who have just bought a new house, like new to them, not brand new to them, and they have a completely dead tree on the property, and they're asking you to come out and see what's wrong with their tree and how you can nurse it back to health, because the realtor told them that if you just water it, it'll come back? Do you guys get that? I get that all the time out here, especially with pine trees or, you know, evergreens of any sort. We have a few different kinds of pines: Austrian, Scots, Ponderosa, and a couple others. And we have blue spruces, white fir, Douglas fir, and a couple of others that are common around here, juniper, and western Colorado juniper. And I'm not kidding with you guys. I get a call about 4 times a year to come out and look at a tree. I've got an evergreen. Something's wrong with it. I was wondering what you could do to make it lively again. And I get out there and the thing has clearly been dead for like 4 or 5 years. And they're like, yeah, the realtor told me that it just needed watering and it would come back in a little bit of fertilizer. Can you do that for me? And I'm like, sorry, it's gone. Do you guys get stuff like that a lot? I'm just curious if it's just me. So I'm going to drink something real quick. Oh, yeah. Not kidding, Brian. Totally dry stick. Like, you walk up to it, and as you walk by the tree, the breeze off of your shoulder knocks limbs off. It's so dead, right? It's like bad. And they're like, can you fix this for me? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I don't think that one's got an opportunity to be recovered. Oh, well, the realtor told me. And I'm like, that's the problem. Realtors are not arborists. Which, you know what, while we're talking about this, brings me to another quick point. One thing that I've been doing, and I've only been called out a few times for it, Parkway, that maple will live. You did a nice job on that tree. Plus, a tree needs to be aesthetically pleasing or the owner will chop it up. Yeah, I agree. And that is one thing I forgot to mention, Ben. I do try to always balance health with value, with aesthetic look, and function of the neighbor. I think, or the client. If you don't balance all of those out, people aren't going to be happy with the tree. So it is a balance there of all four of those things. The tree bee, no, I've connected with a few realtors to provide a tree inspection for clients prior to purchase. Yeah, I've done that too, tree bee. That's what I was about to say. I'm really pushing hard. Sorry. To do that. But what I'm doing is the opposite of the realtors. The realtors just don't. Out here, the realtors just seem to want to make a sell, and they'll tell the client almost whatever. So I'm telling all of my clients to tell their friends that if they're going to buy a new house, you know, new to them, and it has trees around it, they need to call me so I can do a pre-purchase inspection. Because one thing that they don't realize is that if that tree has a lot of branches laying on the roof or has a lot of big dead that needs to be removed, that is something that they can very probably negotiate into the closing cost so that they don't have to pay the full price of tree trimming. Because I have gone out and done, and we have a bunch of like old Western homes that are more than 100 years old out here. And they've got all these, once again, cottonwoods and elms. A lot of them have big, big dead. Well, I found a 125-year-old home here that I went up and I did some elm tree trimming off locust tree trimming off the roof because it had been laying on the roof. The branches had been laying on the roof so long that the wind had shuffled the branches back and forth to where it rubbed through all the shingles, all the tar paper, and through all the decking on the roof. You could actually see in their attic. It was a small hole, but you could actually see through where the branch had rubbed all the way through the roof. They had no clue that water was getting in their roof from this tree. So and it's cost them, $800 for them to get this tree trimmed, to find out that now they had a roof repair that they also had to pay for. It's if people would do pre-purchase inspections, it would help them save a lot of money. So BZ Arbor Care says trees that look like that usually have a poor appeal, and most people I talk with only care about the look. Yeah. So in connection with that, Brian, I take a lot of effort to try to educate in layman's terms my clients. A lot of them, when I get out on the job site, they for the initial bid, they have kind of that same mindset. Well, it's not pretty. Can you make it pretty? If you can't make it pretty, remove it. It's kind of like the mindset. But then I start talking to them about it, and I often make connections between the history of the house and the area and that tree, how long that house has been there, how many years it took that tree to grow, how that's affecting the environment around us, how hard it would be to replace a tree that can do that much for the environment with a little bit of effort to maintain its health or recoup its health. versus just removing it and trying to put in a small tree, or how many small trees you would have to put in. If you have any knowledge about what's it called, tree assessment, so we're talking about like how to assess the value of a living tree, not just bidding a removal or a planting, right? Or an installation. It helps too, because then you start to see how many tens of thousands of dollars a mature tree is worth. And when you start to give prices to people about their tree being worth $40,000 or $30,000 in a relative scale of it, of value, they start to look at it differently. It's funny. It's like people who buy an expensive car and never drive it, because now they just have an expensive car that they can tell everybody they own. I'm not making fun of people. I'm just saying that's how humans are a lot of times. We buy handmade belts of leather or something that are a good quality, but they're 5 times the cost of a 100% genuine leather belt that we could buy from another company, at a fifth of the cost, because it was handmade. It has a different value context to us as people. And I find that when I get done with about probably, I don't know, maybe 5/8, 3/4 of my clients that came out with that attitude, when I get done with them, they've changed their mentality, and they're interested in at least putting 1 year or maybe 2 years worth of maintenance into that tree, trimming it up, doing regular fertilizing, doing deep water rooting, or whatever they feel is the best solution, or I feel is the best solution for them, and see what happens with it. So I've found a little bit of success with that. Maybe, I'm not saying you're not doing that, maybe you are, but maybe it's just going about explaining it a different way that might help them have that benefit and retain that tree. If that makes sense. I get a lot of return business, and it's because I just don't remove a lot of trees. I'm probably as a tree service company, I probably remove less trees in town than any other tree service company. And it's not because I can't get the tree removal work. It's not because I can't do tree removals. I'm totally capable of it, and I'm pretty good at it. It's that if tree removal to me is a last ditch effort. Now, there are times, they're building a shop. What are you going to do? They got to have a space for a shop. If they can't fit it anywhere else on the property, and that tree or those trees have to go, well, it's just part of being a tree service professional and an arborist, right? But if they think that, a lot of times I have people out, how much is it to remove it? And I'm like, well, it'll be this price to remove it. Well, okay. And I'm like, well, why do you want to have it removed? They haven't even thought of the options that it could look better, or that it could be a healthy tree. I find a lot of people come, they just call me out. They see a whole bunch of dead in their tree, and they think the tree is dying. But it's just natural old age of a 100-year-old or 60-year-old cottonwood or whatever, So, and the other thing I get out here is topped trees, like trees that have been topped a billion times. They have a fairly thin canopy on them anyway. There's a bunch of dead up there, and you can see that there's rot holes in them down in the stems. And people are like, oh, it needs to be removed. You have a lot of guys that drive around in a pickup truck with a chainsaw, and they'll walk up and say, oh, all your trees are hollow. They all need to be removed. And the truth of the matter is almost all of them are hollow. I'm not going to deny that. But they've been standing for 40 years hollow. I have to really do an evaluation on it to see if the level of decay, in my mind, merits an actual risk. Because a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they have another 20 years in them. And people are they're just throwing out huge numbers like, oh, for $10,000, I'll cut down every tree and you'll get rid of all these dangerous trees and then they use the scare tactics. Oh, they're going to fall on your house and kill your kids. And I hate it when people say stuff like that. There's no need for that. It's a scare tactic. I feel like people are trying to rob people of their money because the people just genuinely don't know what else to do. And they think that this guy with a magnetic on his truck door and a chainsaw in the back of the pickup is a legit guy. And once again, I'm not dogging on people who have magnetics on your truck. That's fine. It's just, those simple ways of making yourself look like a business for certain guys are the ways that they get away with kind of robbing people. And so I don't like that. That's something I really dislike. But yeah, so maybe there's a few ideas in this topic that could help you guys. I don't know. Hope so. I always hope that I'm being helpful to you guys. What do you guys think? Did I miss anything? Was it helpful for you guys this evening? Because the day I don't get any more thumbs up or yes or whatever, I'm just stopping the lives. It's no more fun at that point, because if I can't be helpful, I'm not perfect, but I would like to be helpful at least. Conquistador says, yeah, man. All right. Cornpo 6677 says, yes. Very good. Thanks, guys. Now, I do have a genuine question for you. Does anybody have a question that you want me to cover on Tuesday? Brian says, definitely helpful. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. I don't ask you these questions just for self-gratification. I promise. The Tree Bee says, yes. Thanks, Eric. Thank you. I just want to genuinely know if I'm being helpful or not. That's my point. Yeah. I don't need you guys' approval to be satisfied with who I am. I promise. It is nice to know that I'm helpful, though. Does anybody have a question that I could cover on Tuesday? I've got an idea, but I want to make sure I'm covering what you guys are interested in as well. Thanks, ENO251. Yeah, I agree, Brian. Conversation in general is good and helpful. I mean, so here's what I always ask of people, and this is what I tell people. I'm always willing to listen, and I don't mean hear. I mean listen to what you have to say. But I always reserve the right to not implement what you explain to me or potentially not agree with it. But that's okay. I'm not saying that what I say you have to apply in your lives or agree with. I'm just saying, at least if you've listened, maybe it'll help you formulate a new idea from your idea and mine. How do you pick and check tie-in points? Oh, Brian's out there throwing out the ones he wants me to get in trouble with. No, yeah, I mean Ben, not Brian. Sorry, Brian's BZ Arbor Care. Yeah, that's a good one, Ben. Let's talk about that. From the ground or in the tree. Yeah. So, real quick, Ben, we'll go over that on Tuesday, but I will tell you this. For me personally, I have more concern about picking a redirect tie-in point in the tree while already in the tree than I do picking a tie-in point from the ground. And I know some people are opposite of that, but we'll go over why I think that and how I go about checking them. And we'll see what kind of chastising I get from Ben for telling you guys bad information. I'm just kidding, Ben. Ben's a good guy. We've been talking back and forth, and I'm just picking on him a little bit, but he's a really good guy, and he's been helping me out with just learning new stuff about new equipment. It's really hard to get your hands on everything, and he's using some stuff I don't use, and it's just cool. Brian with BZ Arbor Care says, I think my biggest deficiency is rigging. I'm always down to talk about rigging because I think I do need help with that. All right. So I don't mind talking about rigging, Brian, but maybe that can be one of the discussions we have as a group for the Patreon members talk or conversation. Okay. I haven't told you guys that, but soon, this month, in fact, I'm changing up some of the rewards because some of the rewards I had don't seem to really be that impressive to you guys. And we're going to make it where everybody who's a member, at least for now, we all do a Zoom meeting once. I don't know if it's every month or every other month. It seems like that's where the value in you guys being my patrons is. So maybe that'll work. Let me know what you think. Azeroth, you're coming in just as we're leaving. So let's see. Still hates heights, same thing. You guys are coming in at the very tail end. Sorry. It will be on IGTV, so definitely go check it out there. Before I sign off, I have to tell you guys all thank you once again. I really appreciate the support. It's amazing. I am getting like 250 views of my Instagram lives, these chats that we're doing within a day or two, and then I'm getting like almost 1,000 on some of them within 3 or 4 days. It's never expected this. So thanks, Azeroth. He says, no problem, bro. Just wanted to stop by. Yeah. If you guys want to listen to it, you can. I will, as soon as I get, something's been going on with Buzzsprout lately. So I'm trying to get Buzzsprout up. In fact, BZ Arbor Care, Brian, I have a podcast with Zach Richards or zigzagman.zr all about rigging that I'm trying to get uploaded. As soon as I get it uploaded, check that out. And you guys will like that. So next week, if you're just joining in, Ben with Parkway Tree said that I should cover how to pick and check tie-in points, both from the ground and in the tree. So very good topic. So Tuesday, I'm going to try to make it Tuesday at 6 p.m. my time, which will be 8 p.m. Western. It'll also be 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Western. We'll go over that topic. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next one. You guys all have a good evening. Take care. Bye. Be safe out there climbing.